Picture a small warehouse in Ohio. One loading dock, 3 employees, coffee going cold on a folding table. Inside are boxes that look ordinary. Screws, wires, plastic casings, nothing flashy, nothing political. And yet, those boxes are about to decide whether this business survives the year. Not because customers disappeared, not because workers quit, but because of a policy designed to protect American businesses. Tariffs. Here's the uncomfortable truth. When tariffs go up, small U.S. businesses usually feel the pain first, and often the hardest. Not foreign companies, not massive corporations, the small ones. And the reason why is simpler and more brutal than most people realize. Right now, tariffs are back in the spotlight. They're framed as shields, as tools of strength, as leverage against foreign competitors, especially China. The logic sounds clean. Tax foreign goods, make imports expensive, force Americans to buy local. Simple story, strong applause lines. But the real system doesn't work on speeches. It works on invoices, cash flow, and math that doesn't care about intentions. Let's slow this down. First, a basic but often missed fact. Tariffs are paid by the importer, not the foreign exporter, not the overseas factory. The U.S. business importing the product writes the check. If you're a giant corporation, that's annoying. If you're a small business, that can be fatal. Imagine you run a small U.S. company that assembles home appliances. You don't import finished products, you import parts, motors, sensors, tiny components that don't exist at scale in the US.
When a tariff hits those parts, your cost goes up immediately. No negotiation window, no adjustment period, just a higher bill. Large corporations respond differently. They spread the cost across thousands of products. They renegotiate contracts. They move suppliers. They hedge currency risk. They pressure governments quietly. Small businesses don't have that menu. They have 3 options: raise prices, eat the cost, or shut down. Now here's where the irony kicks in. The foreign supplier, they often don't feel it at all. Why? Because global suppliers sell to many markets. If the US becomes more expensive, they redirect shipments. Europe, Southeast Asia, domestic Chinese buyers. Their factory still runs. Their workers still get paid. The small US importer, on the other hand, is stuck. They can't just redirect their customers. Their customers are local. And this is where the math turns ugly. Let's say a small US business runs on a 10% margin. That's normal, sometimes generous. A 25% tariff on a key input doesn't mean profits fall 25%. It can mean profits go to 0 or negative, because margins aren't cushions, they're thin ice. Large corporations can absorb that hit for years. Small businesses measure survival in quarters. Now here's the part rarely mentioned in tariff debates. Many foreign competitors don't pay tariffs at all. Why? Because they don't sell to the US as importers. They sell directly online. They ship through loopholes. They stay under de minimis thresholds. They use third country routing. Meanwhile, the compliant US small business pays every dollar. The rule follower gets punished. The system gamer adapts. That's not ideology. That's logistics. Let's zoom out. Tariffs are often described as pressure tools. Apply pain, force change. But pressure depends on who can endure pain longer. Foreign governments, they can subsidize. They can absorb losses. They can delay. Small US businesses cannot. They don't have ministries backing them. They have payroll on Friday. And when costs rise, something else happens quietly. investment freezes. That small manufacturer doesn't buy new equipment, doesn't hire, doesn't expand. They play defense, and defense slowly looks like retreat. Meanwhile, large multinational firms gain market share, not because they're better, but because they're heavier. Tariffs don't just raise prices, they change who survives, and survival reshapes markets. This leads to another uncomfortable reality. Tariffs often reduce competition inside the US. Small businesses exit. Fewer players remain. Prices rise anyway. The policy meant to protect consumers ends up shrinking choices. And once small businesses disappear, they rarely come back. Now, let's address the counter-argument. What about bringing manufacturing back to America? In theory, higher tariffs make domestic production more attractive. In practice, rebuilding supply chains takes years. Skilled labor, permits, capital, infrastructure. Small businesses can't wait that long. They don't have 5-year timelines. They have next month's rent. And even if production returns, it often returns automated. Fewer jobs, higher prices. Protection doesn't mean revival. Sometimes it just means delay. There's also a timeline problem most people ignore. Tariffs hit instantly. Domestic alternatives arrive slowly. That gap is where businesses die. And once gone, the future benefit doesn't matter. Now, here's the quiet twist. Large foreign companies often benefit indirectly from tariffs. Why? Because when small US competitors disappear, pricing power increases and market power compounds. The very actors tariffs are meant to restrain often emerge stronger. Not because tariffs help them, but because tariffs eliminate their weakest rivals. That's not a conspiracy, it's selection pressure. Economics doesn't care about flags, it cares about scale. Let's talk about perception versus reality. Politically, tariffs look tough. They look decisive. They look simple. But economically, they're blunt instruments in a system built on precision. They don't target bad actors. They target flows. And flows don't ask who deserves protection. They just move where friction is lowest. For small US businesses, friction keeps rising. Costs rise. Uncertainty rises. Risk rises. Meanwhile, foreign competitors adapt faster than expected because they've had to. Here's a small, almost absurd detail. Many small US businesses spend more time dealing with tariff paperwork than improving products. Time lost to compliance is time not spent competing. Large firms hire teams. Small firms hire stress. So when you hear tariffs described as helping American business, the missing word is scale. They help some American businesses, usually the biggest ones, and they often hurt the smallest ones first. Which raises a bigger question. If small businesses are the backbone of the US economy and tariffs weaken them disproportionately, who exactly is being protected? Because policies don't operate on slogans, they operate on systems, and systems reward those built to endure friction. Tariffs increase friction. The strongest survive. The rest fade quietly. No press conference, no headlines, just another closed warehouse, another for lease sign. So the next time tariffs are framed as a simple trade-off, ask a harder question. Not who do we punish, but who can actually survive this? Because in economics, survival isn't about being right, it's about being resilient. And resilience in a tariff-heavy world is something small businesses rarely get to choose.
And this is where the responsibility question lands. Because tariffs aren't accidents. They're choices made by people who don't run small warehouses, who don't manage cash flow week to week, who don't decide between paying a tariff bill or making payroll. The US government talks endlessly about supporting small businesses, calls them the backbone of the economy, photographs them in campaign ads, but then designs policies assuming everyone has corporate balance sheets. That contradiction isn't harmless, it's structural. When policy protects scale instead of resilience, it quietly reshapes the economy upward. Fewer owners, fewer competitors, more concentration. And once that happens, it's almost impossible to reverse. Tariffs don't fail loudly. They succeed selectively. They reward size. They punish fragility. And small businesses are fragile not because they're weak, but because they're human. So the real question isn't whether tariffs sound tough. It's whether the system they create is worth the businesses it sacrifices. That's a conversation politicians avoid, because it doesn't fit on a slogan. If you want finance and economics explained without theater, without tribal talking points, and without pretending systems care about intentions, subscribe. Because the real story of money isn't who's blamed, it's who quietly pays.